For more on the fiscal cliff, we are joined in the studio here by Richard Fowler of the Phoenix Freedom PAC and Ed Butowsky of the Chapman Capital Investment Management, also joining us from New York City. Gentlemen, welcome both. Richard, let's start with you. The fiscal cliff. Is the media, including us, making a big deal about over nothing, or are we not making a big enough deal about the fiscal cliff?
Well, I don't really think it's a fiscal cliff. I'd more say it's a fiscal curve or a fiscal political showdown. At the end of the day, we know that a lot of the sequestration cuts are going to happen over time, and the only thing that's really going to sort of end in December is the Bush tax cut, is the Bush rates increasing. So I think that it's not necessarily the media making a big deal. I think right now what needs to happen is leaders in Washington have to come to the table, and Republicans are going to have to budge.
Ed, do you agree that Republicans have to budge? I guess in some sense, the Speaker of the House has already said that they are likely to budge, at least on the revenue side. At this point, what else can Republicans logically or reasonably give the Democrats to try to inch towards a deal?
Yeah, and I'm really surprised that Richard said what he did, because he's actually making very light of a very, very serious situation, because we're already in stagflation. Our economy is not growing at all. Unemployment is very, very high. Prices are rising. And the last thing we need is for our economy to, literally shrink as much as it's going to based on this fiscal cliff. But, the fiscal cliff was put in, and it was really a poison pill for the economy. And, we're talking all about it, but the reality is the policies that Obama has in place and the policies that are going to continue under the second term of Obama is not doing anything to help our economy at all. So we'll talk all about the fiscal cliff, but even when that's over with,
Ed, I want to try to avoid politics as much as possible, but I want to ask you, what does the deal look like to you if you had to say what the deal would look like?
Okay, but I just want to finish that one point, that it's not going to get any better regardless if we fix it or not. Is there going to be a deal? Look, at some point there's going to be a deal, because that's what happens in Washington, and everybody likes to see a deal get done. The Republicans are certainly going to give in terms of raising taxes, which I'm fine with. If we raise taxes on the wealthy, it's not going to do anything for the economy, so we will see some of that, and then you'll also see some tax, some cuts and some spending as well.
But that's just not true, though. I think what we realize is that if when the government spends, when more revenue is coming into the government has the ability to pump the economy, make up the gap that has been lost because of this economic recession that we're in. That's how we get out of the economic recession. That's how we create jobs. That's how we put teachers, firefighters, and nurses back to work.
Richard, you have an economics background, Richard. I know that. And what you just said is absolutely not true.
Taking money out. It's called Keynesian economics. Have you heard of it?
All right, gentlemen, let's stay on topic here. Richard, I want to ask you, if you're sitting in the White House, the Republicans are offering revenue. Would the Democrats consider cuts to entitlements like Social Security?
Not at all. And here's why.
Why is that?
No, I'll answer this because of the cuts to Social Security that the Republicans are saying are going to solve all of our problems and end all of our woes is just not true. Social Security isn't the problem. The problem is wasteful government spending, and the wasteful government spending is not in entitlements. The wasteful government spending is at the Pentagon. It's big oil subsidies. It's tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires.
In any government, whether you're in the United States or you're in any other government around the world, there is going to be waste in the government. What are the departments that you would consider having spending cuts and significant ones?
The Defense Department. And here's, the generals have said, we don't want all this spending. In the last round, the Republicans gave the generals an additional $100 million that the general said, hey, we don't need this. We need to change and the president said it's going to make a leaner and greener fighting machine instead of the machine that we have now.
Ed, I want to get you back in on this. Yeah. Our viewers, Ed, are from around the world, and a lot of them watch this debate between you and Richard, and they go, gosh, there goes the Americans again, arguing about this whole debate. Nothing's going to get resolved. And when it does come, it's going to look like Kool-Aid, because the problem isn't going to be resolved. What do you tell those international viewers who have somewhat given up confidence that Congress can get a deal done?
Well, I'll tell them this. Don't focus so much on the fiscal cliff. Focus more on how we get our economy going, and we get our economy going by dropping tax rates and stimulating that, stimulating that way. The world is looking for the United States to lead. We're a $15 trillion economy. When you look at China, Japan, and Germany, as you know very well, Phil, those are 2, 3, and 4. And as the U.S. goes the rest of the world. And what Richard is saying flat out won't work. And yes, we are arguing over it, and his Keynesian economics doesn't work. It won't work. It's a dream with Richard saying.
I got to be careful arguing Richard, because he's sitting 2 feet away from me here, and he's substantially bigger than I am. So, Richard, I want to talk to you about one of the important parts of this tax hike or cut that will take place, and that is the child tax credit. Currently, for any individual in the United States who has a child, it's a $1,000 tax credit. If we were to do nothing, that would go down to $500, essentially a $500 per child tax increase. Is that on the table to be discussed?
I think that will.
Who's looking out for the parents?
Well, I think the president's looking out for the parents, and the president will keep that. I think that number will stay at 1,000 in any negotiation that we're in, because the president's big on middle-class families. He's big on working-class families. But to go back to the argument that Ed made, we know for a fact that these tax rates is what got us into this recession. George W. Bush.
No, we didn't. That's not
hold
true.
on a second. George W. Bush cut taxes when he came into office. That's what got rid of the Clinton surplus and the long period of economic growth. And that is what got us into this recession. And every single time that we've seen economic growth and job creation in this country, it happened under higher tax rates.
Ed's going to get the last word because he's the away team. Ed, I'm going to let you respond,
sure.
But just quickly, regarding the tax cuts for any individual, would you, or do you believe the Republicans would be lenient on tax hikes for anybody, let alone just those who make $250,000 or more?
Look, from a political standpoint, I'm sure the Republicans are going to raise taxes. It doesn't make sense. No matter what Richard says, all of you around the world, Keynesian economics doesn't work, and it isn't the Bush tax cuts that got us into this problem. That is not the reason the United States is where we are today.
Gentlemen, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you to both of you. Have a great holiday.